you ever bought something and later regretted it? When you go shopping, how do you choose out of multiple options? How do you decide what a purchase is worth? Do you decide based on price, size, color, material it is made out of, other options? Economists and scientists who study behavior are very interested in how people make choices and decisions about what they buy. They predict that we should make decisions based on the value of our options, and that when we are determining something's value, as long as the actual value doesn't change, our perception of the value and our choice based on that perception shouldn't change either. That makes sense, right? If the actual value of something doesn't change, our perception of the value shouldn't change. But actually, humans change their perception of an option all the time based on how options are presented, what choices they have, and what experience they've had. I bet you've done it yourself. To really understand how humans make these types of decisions, let's look at some examples. People alter their choice depending on if a purchase is framed as a loss or a gain. One example comes from an experiment where people registered for a conference. Until a certain date, there was a cheaper price of $145 to register. And if people registered after the date, the price was $195. The price change of $50 was the same for all people. But for half the people, the price change was framed as a penalty. These people were told, "The conference fee will include a penalty for late registration after July 10th. For the other half, the price change was framed as a discount. These people were told, "The discounted conference fee for early registration is available until July 10th. Even though the price change before and after July 10th was the same for everyone, the way that the price change was presented to them affected the decision to register early or not. More people, 93%, registered early in the first group, when the change in price was a penalty, and fewer people, 67%, registered early in the second group, when the change in registration price was a discount. This fits a general pattern that losses or penalties affect our behavior more than gains or discounts. When we choose between two options and then a third option is added, the third option might make us like the original two options less, but it definitely should not make us like one of the original options more. It also shouldn't change how we compare the other two options to each other. However, something called decoy pricing takes advantage of this strange effect a third option can have on our perception of two other options. In a great example of this, people had to choose whether they wanted to buy a smooth ride, like a Rolls-Royce, with worse gas mileage, or a rough ride, like a Jeep, with better gas mileage. When presented with both options, people chose the Jeep 42% of the time, and the Rolls-Royce 58% of the time. Then a third option, called a decoy, was presented. The decoy had as good of gas mileage as the Jeep, but it was an even rougher ride. When this third option was presented, it actually made people ignore the Rolls-Royce because they did not have a good comparison to make. Instead, people compared the Jeep to the decoy, as these were more similar and so easier to compare. This resulted in an increase in preference for the Jeep. People chose the Jeep 70% of the time when they had a relatively worse but comparable decoy to compare it to. Not only can the choices that you're choosing from change your rating, but the options you have had in the past can also change your rating. In one example, people who were buying car tires made their decisions based on past options. One group, Group A, initially compared tire options that differed in how long they would last by 20,000 miles, but differed in price by only $6. A second group, Group B, initially compared tire options that differed in how long they would last by only 5,000 miles, but differed in price by $24. So, Group A saw a big difference in quality for a small difference in price. Group B saw a small difference in mileage for a big difference in price. Both of these groups were then given 2 tires to choose from in a final choice set. The tires in the final choice set differed in quality by 10,000 miles and differed in price by $15. For Group A, 10,000 miles was not worth $15 extra, and they chose the cheaper option. For Group B, 10,000 more miles for only $15 extra seemed like a steal, and they chose the more expensive option. Even though both groups got to choose between the same tires, the options they previously saw influenced what they thought was a good deal versus what they thought was a ripoff. Pretty crazy, huh? The way an option is presented, what it is presented with, and what an individual has experienced in the past can shape our decisions in ways we didn't even realize. This behavior is called irrational by economists and scientists, and you might think humans are a little crazy, but guess what? We are not alone in our irrational choices. Lots of animals, including bees, birds, and rats, also make these same kinds of irrational decisions. All these studies make scientists wonder if irrational decisions aren't so irrational after all. For example, whether jays choose to go deep into a tunnel, which is a risk for predation, for multiple reasons, or stay in the shallow part of the tunnel for just one reason, depends on how many reasons and at what depth in the tunnel they encountered in the past. If they previously were offered more raisins in the shallow part of the tunnel, they won't go deeper into the tunnel for the same number of raisins. Now, why would this be? Well, if comparisons and past experience can make it easier, faster, or safer to make decisions when the environment is uncertain, then irrational decisions based on comparisons and past experience could help animals survive, find mates, and make offspring. This means that irrational decision-making could have evolved because it helped animals leave behind more offspring through making those faster and safer decisions. So, while we may find that we make irrational choices when it comes to buying a t-shirt or a soda, the same mental machinery is also helping us make really important decisions about how to live. And in the end, the irrational decision may be the one that is the fastest, safest, and ultimately